Okay, so the main event of tonight, saving snakes and saving lives, the impact of Watamu Snake Farm, and Kyle will be presenting for us. So a little bit about Kyle. He is a fifth generation Kenyan, born and raised in Nairobi with a lifelong passion for wildlife and snakes. His love for nature actually began in Tanzania on his grandparents' farm, where he was taught by his granddad and a Tindiga bushman as well. He then followed that by a work experience stint at Watamu, which used to be called Bioken, but is now called Watamu Snake Farm. And that's really where the passion turned into more of a mission. So he was mentored there by Roy and Taylor to handle snakes, collect venom, and educate communities as well. And so after working as a guide actually across East Africa, Kyle then took over as the curator of Watamu Snake Farm in 2019, when he now focuses on snake conservation, venom extraction, and changing perceptions, because saving snakes is ultimately what saves lives. So Kyle, thank you so much for giving us your time and expertise to give us this talk. Really, really excited. And I'm going to stop sharing and hand over to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Let me get my screen up. Hi, guys. So yeah, I'm Kyle Ray. I'm the curator at Watamu Snake Farm. We're located in Watamu along the Kenya coast. A beautiful place to come. I think there's a few of you who have been here. So these are our emergency contacts for people in Kenya. These are good contacts to have. You've got my personal number. It's on me all the time. So if anyone has a snake which they've seen or they want ID'd, you can send me a WhatsApp and then I'll be able to ID it, tell you what it is, and then we can organize someone to come and catch and relocate it. Or if you're happy with leaving it there, something harmless, something that's not bothering you, then you can keep it. We've got our duty number, which is on all the time. And if you don't get me, you can chat to the team there. Then yeah, visit our website, have a look at what we do. We have a few different fun programs which we offer. So the snake farm was started in 1980s by James Ash. Some of you might know him. He's this chap in the middle in the wheelchair. He was one of the first curators at the National Museums of Kenya. And when he stopped working there, he wanted to carry on working with snakes and do a lot of research into discovering new species, looking into venoms. And originally he was wanting to go to Uganda, but he had some issues there. And lucky for us, he settled on the coast in Watamu. And he set up a small little park with snakes and was mainly doing a lot of research, looking into new species, the venom. He was exporting insects to the States. And slowly, he became known as the snake man in Watamu. And when people got bitten, they would come to see him to seek advice. If it was a really bad case and needed antivenom, James would give this antivenom free of charge. He ran the farm along with Sanda, his wife, who is an amazing lady as well, very passionate about animal care, looking after them, and it was quite a force to be reckoned with. If you didn't get on with her, she wasn't the friendliest of persons, but if you did, she was a sweetheart. Royan then took over the farm. He was one of James Ash's youth wing, is what he used to call it, and we still have a youth wing now. So James mentored him, taught him about snakes, and handed over the snake farm to him when James was getting a bit old. Roy was actually working in Shimoni at the time, and when they had the meeting to come and run the park, he jumped on that, as I did as well. He then brought up the farm to what it's known as today. He did a lot of work with different organizations all around the world, the WHO, and he was coming up with these great plans, and unfortunately passed away about 6 years ago, very suddenly. And this massive farm with loads of snakes was left to his wife. And she called me up and said, "Carl, I know nothing about snakes. I need a help. Will you pop down? So I quickly jumped on it and headed down to the farm. TAF set up a non-profit organization in 2001 in memory of James and Royan. And the main focus of this non-profit was to be able to educate communities on snake awareness and snake bite, and also to be able to give people anti-venom for those who cannot afford it. Most people who get bitten in Kenya are people living hand to mouth. They're out in the field collecting wood and things like that, and they can't afford the anti-venom. A vial of anti-venom goes for about 8,000 Kenya shillings here. So that's about $70 or somewhere around there. So our mission is simple, to save lives, limbs, and livelihoods. We do this through snake conservation and research. We do a lot of work with the different communities all around Kenya. We have trainers heading off to different areas of Kenya at any given time to give talks to them about the importance of snakes, why we need to keep them, why we shouldn't kill them. Last year, I think we did over 2,000 individuals trained and about 2,000 kids in a community kids program, which we do. We do a lot of focus on snake bite prevention and treatment. As anywhere in Africa, a lot of the treatment is running off to the witch doctor. We call them mugangas here, and trying to use your traditional means to get treated. Royan worked a lot in the early stages with these witch doctors and sort of spoke to them and said, you guys know when you're getting a really bad case. So when that is happening, just refer them to us. We can treat that person and save them. And we'll give you a referral fee because they're in a business as well. And a lot of the witch doctors agreed. And this program carried on for a while. And then it slipped off a little bit as we had a few of the old mugangas die off and we have some of the new ones coming in. So we are trying to get out there and talk to them, but they're not the easiest people to speak to. Why do we do this? Every 5 minutes, one person dies and 4 people are left permanently injured from snake bite. This is a huge, huge problem. Not just in Kenya or in Africa, but a lot of the world has a big problem with snake bite. There's lots of people bitten every day, lots of people dying, and a huge problem which a lot of people aren't really focusing on is sort of the mental trauma people go through after a snake bite. People get bitten, they spend a lot of money on treatment, they end up watching their limbs rot and fall off, and there's a lot of mental trauma going on there. And I think this is something which needs a little bit more focus on the treatment of snake bite, is like the aftercare of patients, and that would really help. In Kenya, we lose about 1,000 people a year to snake bite. This is a rough estimate. There are a lot of very remote places in Kenya where people probably get bitten and die and never actually end up getting to a medical facility, and that death never gets recorded. Another huge statistic which we got from KWS is that 44.8% of all human-wildlife conflict are a result of snakes. This is a massive figure. When I heard it, I was quite shocked. I didn't think it was that big. I knew it was quite a lot, but not as big as that. Kofi Annan had a great quote. The large majority of victims of snakebite are politically voiceless, subsistence farmers, and the real poor displaced populations and children. It is up to the international communities to be their voice. This is very true here. As I said, the people who are getting bitten are the voiceless. If we had politicians or tourists, wealthy businessmen getting affected by snakebite, then it would come onto the radar of our politicians and they would probably try to make an effort to solve it. So it's up to organizations like myself and and lots of other organizations around the world to sort of try and highlight this and get this into the hands of the right people so they can start taking it seriously. The snake farm is open from 10 to 4:30 every day. We have a large collection of snakes. We've just done a whole bunch of new enclosures, as you can see from the background. A lot of new signage and information. It's very fun and interactive for kids. Most of our tours are all guided. You do get some people who don't really want a guide and they want to try go around by themselves, and that's absolutely fine. We've got enough information on the cages to get you around. We do a milking demonstration at 11 a.m. and we do a handling demonstration at 3 in the afternoon. This happens on weekdays, and it's a very exciting way for the guests to see a venom extraction. I'm going to show a video of it later on, and also to see people handling some big cobras or vipers and stuff like that. And it's very exciting. Especially the kids love it. We do a few different activities from snake handling courses. There's Kenya, like South Africa, is vast. You have a lot of snakes going into a lot of people's houses, and especially here we don't have enough people who can go around and rescue and remove these snakes. In some cases, we end up flying people from one side of Kenya to the other side to go and rescue a snake out of someone's house. So a lot of these training courses which we're doing are teaching people an offhands method. How do you get a snake that is in someone's tent or in someone's house? How can you safely catch that, put it into a bucket or a tube and transport it and release it? We're not teaching people how to go out into the bush and catch a black mamba that's up a tree. That takes a very different skill set. We've had huge success in this. A place called Lewa was one of our first places we went and started doing these snake awareness trainings. They had a huge problem there with snakes, and majority of them were just being bashed on the head. They now have a bit of an issue where if a snake is sighted, they all of a sudden have about 30 guys pitching up wanting to catch the snakes. So they sort of have a rota to try and manage all the different people excited to try and remove the snake from the different areas. So now when I sit in their room and I hear them speaking to guests and I hear them saying that they protect all species of animals, I believe this. There's many places you go to and they say, oh, we're going to protect all animals and we look after everything. But as soon as a snake, the scorpion runs across the way, it gets whacked on the head. So it's great progress to see this. With the snake handling, we do a lot of snake awareness training in lodges, in communities, teaching people the benefits of snakes. Most people, as soon as we get there, they say, these things cause us such problems. Why don't we just get rid of all of them and kill them? So trying to explain that this isn't the solution. If we wipe out the snakes, we'll have a huge problem with rats and different rodents, which will also bring diseases. And it will throw sort of throw us out of balance. We do these in a number of different ways, from paid trainings at the farm, going out and doing paid trainings. And then we do a lot of it to the community. So we had a big community talk yesterday, and we do one every Thursday where we find the elders in an area. We get about 30 to 40 people together and talk to them about snakes. And most importantly, what do you do if you come across them? Who can you call to help? And what to do if you get bitten. We do offer internships, which are being quite busy. So people who are studying snakes or students who are on a gap year and are passionate about snakes, want to learn a little bit more, you can come down, spend as much time as you want with us. We've had people popping in just for a day to help us, to others coming around for 6 months and learning everything they want to know about snakes, how to handle them safely and in a great environment. One of my favorite things to do are snake safaris. This is something which we've been pushing quite hard, and it's come off really well this year. And we offer a few different options, from a half-day safari, so you can come to the snake farm and we can head out for a morning or an evening into a few different locations. We even have started doing them at night now, and try looking for snakes. I've got a big trip coming up at the end of the year. It's about a 17-day trip, and we're going all around Kenya to try target different species in different areas. It's a great way to experience the bush. It's a bit like doing a walking safari. A lot of the time you're on your feet, you're walking around in beautiful areas where most tourists wouldn't usually go. And we find some awesome stuff. There's the common snakes, which we see very often. And every now and then you find something very rare, or we have also found things which are new to areas, which is really cool. Community engagement. One of the things which we offer at the snake farm is snake call-out services. So when someone gets a snake in their house or in their farmland, they can call us and we'll jump on a motorbike or jump in a car and rush down and catch a snake. On average, we probably get about 4 calls a day. Sorry, 4 calls a week within our sort of immediate area. And there's many other calls which we get from all around Kenya. I've created a WhatsApp group with a big network of handlers. So we can send people all over Kenya to try and help catch and really relocate snakes. The most we've done is about 8 calls in one day. And that gets really busy. And we're catching everything from harmless house snakes to black mambas. Along the coast in Watamu, you get these massive tall roofs because it's really hot, so it allows airflow in. And they're made out of thatching. And right at the top in the middle beam is where the mambas like to sit, because there's lots of rodents up there. So in our line of work, you also have to be quite good at climbing and hanging off beams in funny angles to try and rescue snakes. We had one of our guys who was called to a green mamba up a coconut tree, and he managed to climb up the coconut tree and catch the snake. On his return, I said I would have just sat at the bottom of the coconut tree waiting for it to come down. I wouldn't have gone up there. Community-based snake prevention. So yeah, talking about snakes. Sander always used to say that snake bite needs to be taught in schools. This is the way that we can really get the information across to everyone. And it's the way that the kids can learn from an early stage and pass on this knowledge. So this is something which we've really started doing. And we do it in a sort of 3-stage approach. It's a program which was started, I think, in Zambia by Save the Snakes. And we sort of will come to the school and we give them a pre-questionnaire, getting to understand what they know about snakes, how they feel about them. And it's a multiple choice questionnaire, sort of asking, do you know anyone who's been bitten? How do you feel towards snakes? Do you hate them? And then we'll do a presentation, talk to them about snakes. We bring them to the snake farm, show them around, do a milking extraction, and then we'll come back a 3rd time, giving a final talk and giving the questionnaire back to them. And it's really great to see how much this is helping and is changing their mindset. And they're quite enjoying snakes now, wanting to learn a lot more about them, and aren't so scared of them anymore. Another big problem which we had here, we had a bit of a problem like all around Africa with antivenom. There was a huge shortage of antivenoms, and then we had a lot of antivenoms which were brought into the country which didn't work. They weren't effective. So you had doctors who were trying to use antivenoms, and they were getting really bad results. So they ended up just trying to refer patients and got scared of treating snakebite. So a big thing which we're trying to do is go into these clinics and talk to the health workers. It's not a scary thing. I think a lot of health workers, when someone comes in, as soon as they hear the word snake, they start to panic. Where if they just concentrated and treated the symptoms, they would have probably managed it very well. So we work very closely with Dr. Rulu, who's our doctor here in Watamu. Luckily, he's very close to the snake farm, about 5 minutes away. But we work with him going into the different clinics and doing trainings for the health workers to get them to better understand snake bite. We have created a WhatsApp group, which includes a lot of different professionals in Kenya, a lot of different doctors, and some professionals from abroad. And doctors can post questions there, or if they have a patient come in, they can post all the information they need there, a photo of the snake, the symptoms, and then very quickly we can have responses from a lot of people on how to treat them and what they should do. And this has really, really worked. In places like Kitui, they receive about 3 to 4 bites a week. And towards the end of the year, this was really bad. They were losing a lot of people. They weren't really knowing how to treat these patients. And we got in contact with them. We've put them onto this WhatsApp group. We've had some talks with them, and they're having a much better success rate there now, which is great. So a little bit on snakes. How do you identify them? What do you look for? I always get asked, is there a simple way to identify snakes? If you look online, you'll see a lot of different information where if the eyes are round, they're harmless. If they've got slits, they're venomous. If you look at the scales underneath, if they're divided or one scale, then it can be harmless or venomous. If the head shape is a certain shape, then you can differentiate between harmless and venomous. Unfortunately, that's not the case throughout Africa. So basically what you need to do is learn the venomous snakes in your area. Once you know what venomous snakes you get in your area, you can stay away from them, and then it's easier to branch out and learn the smaller ones. But a few things you look out is the location. Where's the snake found? If you're sending in a photo, it's good to say, I'm in Cape Town in South Africa, or I'm in Nairobi, because you'll get certain snakes which are found in that area may not be found elsewhere. For example, we don't get any green mambas in Nairobi. They are only found along the Kenyan coast. The habitat, where was the snake seen? Was it in a tree, on the ground, near water, in the rocks? When you talk of the head shape, what does it look like? Is it a big round head with a big pupil? Can you very easily see where the body ends and the head starts? What shape are the lips? Does it have big smiling lips? Is the head a coffin shaped? That could mean it's a black mamba. What's the length and size of a snake? This is quite a hard one. I remember when I was training with Roy, we got a call from principal at the school, and he said he's got a massive, massive snake. And he said it's a big chatu is what they call them, which is a python. So Roy and I rushed down to go have a look. We were very excited to catch a big python together, and we got there. The whole school was out around this snake, and we walked up, and there was a head boy pointing. We were like, where is it? Where is it? As we got closer, we found it, and it was a tiny baby puff adder, a hatchling. So when you ask someone the length and size of the snake, I like to say, is it as fat as your finger? Is it as fat as your leg? Is it as long as your leg? So then they can sort of put the size of the snake to something which they can see. Otherwise, you get all sorts of different colors, sizes thrown into there. Colors, you're more looking at the patternings of the colors. For example, a boomslang, in Kenya, we get nearly 16 different color variants. So if you focus just on a color and then you end up seeing a different colored boomslang, it could throw you out. So what are the patternings? Are there stripes? Are there lines? Are there rhombic shapes on it? And then looking at the skin texture. Is it smooth skinned or is it rough scales? Was the snake seen during the day, night? When you approached it, was it aggressive? Did it stand up or did it just move off quietly? All of these can really help us identify a snake and can also help you learn snakes. It is a very daunting thing to start with. I struggled a lot when I was trying to learn birds, and I still do. But if you learn the key features, these really does help you. So we always ask for someone to send a photo of the snake. And what we really don't want is people to risk and trying to get the best photo, get really close up to it, see what its eye like is, get its tongue sticking out. We're not after a professional shot here. We're looking for something to show the size of the snake, what its head looks like, the shapes and coloring. And this will be able to help us identify the snake. Sometimes all you get, like the other day, we got a little glimpse of a piece of snake, which was about that long, and it was in these rocks. But again, if you've been around them for enough, you can see the patterns, the scale shapes, and then you can figure out what it is. So in Kenya, there are around 140 known species of snakes. 33 of those species are considered dangerous. 2 of these are pythons. So big python, it's not venomous. But even a python that is 6 foot long, if it manages to get a coil around your neck, that could be you going to sleep for quite a while. 2 are rear fang snakes. These are boomslangs and vine snakes, which you also get in South Africa. They have a very strong hemotoxic venom, but they're very rarely bite. We went through a long spate where there hadn't been many bites from them. And then I think it was about 2 years ago, there was all of a sudden quite a few bites here in Kenya and also in South Africa. But they're very docile snakes, spending most of the time up in the bushes and relying a lot on camouflage. So even sometimes when you do take them out of a bush with a grab stick, they're still relying on camouflage and still think that you think it's a stick. So they're very relaxed. 4 of these are burrowing asps. These are also known as stiletto snakes or mole vipers. One of them has records of death. This is the Biberon's burrowing asp. These are really cool little snakes, probably getting to about 30 centimeters. And there's no safe way of handling this snake. Like all of the cobras, mambas, if you're trained, you can pick it up and hold it by the back of the head. But this snake has long fangs, which can stick out the side of the mouth and give you a little poke in your finger if you try to hit it. So it's really important to not try to go and pick up snakes, and you need to be 100% sure with your IDs. Because if you think you're going to pick this up like a venomous snake, you will end up getting bitten. And this snake bites a lot of people when they're first starting to get into the snaky world. 12 of these are elapids. These are cobras, mambas, and their allies. And then 13 of these are vipers. Only 21 species are known to have killed people. So when you start talking to people and you tell them, look, this is the amount of snakes which we have, but in your area, if you actually narrow it down, the venomous snakes are very few. As we said, there's the pythons, the rear fang snakes, the burrowing asps. And within the vipers, we said there are about 12 different species. A lot of them are harmless. There's been very few. As you can see with the green bush viper, I think there's only been about 3 recorded fatalities from these. So they're not considered life-threatening. The Jameson's mambas, green mambas, gold cobras, yellow-bellied sea snakes, they have a range where there's not many people around, especially in Kenya. So bites from these snakes aren't too often, although they do sometimes happen. The other thing with mambas is they are a very quick moving snake. As soon as they hear someone coming, they do tend to move off and spend most of the time up in the trees. So you don't get as many bites from mambas as one would think, but it does happen from time to time, and you do need to act quite quickly. 8 of the species have a significant threat to human. 5 of these are the cobras. So we get a few, some spitting cobras, as well as the non-spitting cobras. So we've got Egyptian cobras, forest cobras, black neck spitting cobras. My favorite, a red spitting cobra, and the Ash's spitting cobra, which was named after James Ash. And this work to sort of separate it. Originally, it was a blackneck spitting cobra. It was done by Royan and Anthony, I think in 2007. We then have the puff adders, and probably the snake which kills more people than anyone else is the carpet vipers. They have a huge range, and they're very aggressive, short, and very angry little snake. Puff adders bite more people than any other snake in sub-Saharan Africa. It's because they're found all the way from the coast right up to quite high altitude, very slow moving, spending a lot of time on the paths to warm up in the evenings. So how do snakes deliver their venom? It's split up into about 3 different fang structures. We have our hinged front fang snakes. These are like our vipers, the puff adders, gaboon vipers. Gaboon vipers have the largest fangs in the world. They can reach up to 2 inches. And these fangs sit on the roof of the mouth and they open like a switchblade. They're very large and are movable. You then have front fixed fangs. These are your mambas and cobras. They're much smaller fangs, maybe getting to about 6 millimeters, 5 millimeters, a big one. And they don't move and they're right at the front of the mouth. You then get our rear fang snakes like the vine snake and boomslang. These fangs are very far back behind the eye. And they, in order for them to get their venom into you, they really need to chew to sort of try and get it in. When we're milking the snakes, your rear fang snake's venom is much more sticky rather than the other snakes where it is like a liquid. So snakes have a venom gland in the back of the neck. In your big puff adders or even our large ashes spitting cobras, you can really see these big sort of bulbous ears or things, big cheeks on the side of the necks. And that's like a big spongy membrane. And when it's ready to release the venom, it squeezes those and the venom comes out through the fangs and it can deliver its venom into your tissue. Snakes sort of replace their fangs very often. So like they shed their skin, they also do this with their fangs. This is because they need to be sharp and they need to be able to deliver their venom deep into the tissue. There's never a time where a snake has no fangs. So sometimes when you're milking or you catch a snake, you may see it have even 4 fangs there. And that's the 2 old ones which are about to fall out, and they'll usually fall out when they're biting into a prey item. And as soon as they're gone, the new ones are there to take their place. You got to be very careful if you do ever find one of these, not to use it as a toothpick or try to take a thorn out of yourself, because you can get some dried venom in there, which could cause you a lot of problems. I remember I had a gaboon viper which had died on me, and I sort of put its skull in the earth and had the antidote because I wanted to build the skull up. When I dug it up, I saw the mounted bones and was a bit shocked. And it still sat in my drawer. I haven't done it yet. But in that skull, I think I counted nearly 8 fangs that were all lined up and ready to sort of come through. So we have 3 main venom types. There's your hemotoxic venom, which affects your blood clotting mechanism. So this means that you bleed from any old wounds, but you'll also bleed from any opening in your mouth. So from your mouth and all sorts. It's a horrible bite. And most of the snakes which have the hemotoxic venom are your boomslangs and your vine snakes. We then have your cytotoxic venom. This is affecting your tissues. You have a huge amount of swelling from this and a lot of tissue damage. If you look at a lot of snake handlers, I've got all my digits and they're in the right position. But quite often, a lot of snake handlers will have missing digits. And this is from bites, usually from vipers. And quite often when you get a bite in your finger, there's not enough place for that venom to sort of work, and it gets sort of concentrated in that area, and you end up losing a finger. It's a very painful bite and huge amounts of swelling. Then you get your neurotoxic venom. This is a very fast-acting venom, affecting your nervous system. If you see someone who's been bitten by a mamba or something, it almost looks like they're very drunk. They've had a few too many whiskeys. They can't really speak too well. Their eyes will be drooping like they're trying to fall asleep. Can't really stand. So we'll talk about myths later, but one of the one of the treatments that they do here is if you get bitten, you're given a lot of alcohol. And they say that this will make you vomit and flush it out of your system. But this is a terrible thing to do, as it can mask a lot of things, but it can also make a doctor think that maybe this is a neurotoxic snake, when in actual fact, it was something completely harmless, or it could have been a viper or something like that, and now they treat it as a neurotoxic bite, which could be a huge problem. So venomous snake milking, also known as a venom extraction. We do this at the farm, as I said, at 11 o'clock on weekdays. We've come up with a system which we feel is very safe. We have 3 people in our milking bay. Each of those people have a job to do there, and they're all looking out for each other. I think when working with snakes, safety is the biggest thing, and as safe as you can make it, that's the best thing to do. So we're going through a licensing process at the moment. Once this is done, we will be able to sell our venom out of Kenya. And the hopes for this is to be able to sell our venom to people to create an antivenom. This is the only way to treat a snake bite. And antivenom the way antivenom has been made, which I'll speak about in a while, has been going on for about 120 odd years or something. I'll also show you a video of this later. So antivenom, how it's made, we'll milk the snakes. We get the dried venom, or the wet venom. We then dry it. And once it's dry, it looks like your salt in your salt shaker or some sugar. And once it's dry, as long as it's in an airtight container, it does not go off. So if someone was wanting to make an antivenom, they would get some venom from a few different species. Let's say all of our vipers, your cobras and mambas. They mix that together. It is then injected into a host animal. Most often they use horses. This horse then creates antibodies. They will monitor the antibodies, increase some venom from time to time, to see how this horse's antibodies are going. Then they'll drain some blood from the horse. They get the clear plasma on top. That is then purified and bottled and created into antivenom. This whole process takes about a year. It's a very long process, and the horse isn't hurt in any way, apart from a pinprick from an injection every now and then. But the venom doesn't have huge effects on the horse. They start off with such small amounts of venom that it doesn't affect the horse, but it makes its antibodies start working, where it starts building antibodies. There are people who have done this to themselves, injecting themselves with different types of venoms to bring up an immunity. You can go and watch it on YouTube and have a look on it there. Most of the people I've seen don't look the healthiest, and I don't feel like it's done in a controlled environment for us to really figure out what is going on there. But there are some amazing videos of people getting bitten by black mambas and having only a few little symptoms. It's not a way to go. If we were to try and do that here in Watamu, it'd be very, very expensive. Trying to get everyone in, trying to give them their updated shots. So we're focused on trying to support the WHO's goal, which is to reduce snake bite by 50% by 2030. And to help make a good antivenom, you need good, clean venoms. And that's where we're going to be supporting people. With our milking, the sort of guidelines say you can milk a snake after every 2 weeks. But we've found that if we give them 3 weeks, we get a really good yield of venom, and it also doesn't affect the snake as much. It has time for it to shed, to eat, and enjoy a little bit before it gets milked again. Snake bite prevention. What can you do to help yourself or help your neighbors? The first thing, a lot of it is housekeeping, keeping your area clean and tidy. If you have a really messy garden with a lot of bush around, a lot of high grass, this is places where snakes will like to live. It's a place which will also attract rodents, and that in turn attracts snakes. So if you have a lot of wood, stack it up away from the house, up off the ground. Don't leave pieces of iron sheeting lying around, and make a nice safe area in the gardens where people can play or children can walk, keeping grass cut short. I've been asked to come and visit a few people's houses to see what they can do, and they have these beautiful bush homes with rock gardens, running water, lovely big flower beds, and they've created an excellent environment for snakes and all sorts of other things. So if they really want to stop the snakes coming in, they have to clear all of this beautiful garden and just fence it up, put a big wall around you, and leave in a cement compound, which isn't as best. So you need to sort of have a balance. Filling up any holes. A lot of people here in Kenya have mud houses or very simple houses. So making sure there's no gaps under your doors or any holes in the walls, those all need to be sealed up to stop any animals from coming in. Wearing shoes when you're walking around at night. Again, this is a huge problem here. Most people are barefoot. Even at night, everyone's walking around barefoot and they end up treading on the snakes. So wearing just some nice closed shoes can really, really help. Having a torch to walk around at night, see where you're going, will also mean you won't tread on a snake by mistake. Sleeping under mosquito nets and on raised beds. Remember, snakes are cold-blooded, so they seek warm areas for them to warm up and help with digestion. So a nice cozy bed could be a nice place for it to come and rest. So having your bed raised off the ground and tucking it in is a great thing. We do get a few cases. It does sound a little bit scary, but there are a few cases of people being bitten at night. And we get it mostly from red spitting cobras. And I think in Southern Africa, the Mozambique spitting cobras has done this quite a few times. And my sort of thought by this is they're sort of curious. They're not the cleverest of animals, but they've come around, they've smelt something which they think could be something that they could eat. And they've sort of had a little bit of a bite to see what it is, but then slither off when they realize it's something a lot larger than what they can eat. So sleeping under a net and off the ground can really, really help this. Food storage and waste management. If you're gonna have a nice big meal, but then leave food out on the counter, this will attract rodents into the house, which will then in turn attract snakes. So collecting all your food storage, covering it up, moving it outside of the house, away from where anyone's playing or working. This could help reduce the rodents and the snakes coming in. Water management. Again, water attracts rodents. It also attracts snakes. Snakes need to drink water. So having leaking taps around your house could bring them up. In a few really hot areas, I know that they do put water bowls sort of far away in the compound. So if a snake or something does come around, at least they've got water, but they're not coming looking for it right close into the house. Swimming pools are a great place to find snakes as well. They attract lots of frogs, which snakes love. And snakes are very good swimmers. They enjoy swimming. It helps them shed their skin, helps them hydrate a little bit. So checking in your pool filters and in the pump houses for snakes before you start putting your hands into any small gaps. When moving large equipment, big rocks, tents, containers, these make great habitats for the snakes to sit under and hide. When you're camping, make sure to keep your tent closed, close your bags. What happens quite a lot, there was a case, I think just last week in Nanyuki, where there was a red spitting cobra found in Nanyuki town. They're not known from this area. And what most likely happened here is someone had been down into the hotter regions camping, and it got into the car or into their bag and been transported out. So make sure you keep your tents closed, bags zipped up, checking sleeping bags, and most importantly is knocking out your shoes in the evenings. There's different seasons when snakes are more active. For us, we get really busy with snakes from about October, and then that goes all the way through until about beginning of March, end of Feb is when it sort of slows down for us. But knowing these seasons when snakes are more active could really, really help you. And looking on all different social media groups, our pages, Africa Snakebite Institute, there's a few other people who put up some warnings when we are coming into these sort of seasons and what to watch out for. So snakebite first aid, it's fairly simple. There's not a huge amount you can do. A lot of what we do is trying to talk about the myths and traditional treatments. Sorry, I've just noticed the time, so I'm trying to push on a little bit. But yeah, so these are sort of our sort of do's and don'ts. So we'll start off with the don'ts. Don't try to kill the snake. You're wasting the time and energy if you have been bitten. Move away from it. Do not apply a tourniquet or a tight band around the limb. This is something which is used all over the world. People like us have been trying to stop it for I don't know how long, but it is something which still happens. As soon as someone gets bitten, they're putting a piece of wire and tightening it as tight as they can around there. The problem with this is most of the time people are getting bitten by harmless snakes and end up putting a tourniquet and losing the limb. Do not use any traditional methods of healing, like electric shock, sucking the venom out, putting different herbs in there. Do not drink any alcohol. Do not try to suck or bite to remove any of the venom. Once that venom is in your system, there's no way you're going to reverse it and pull it out. Do not cut, burn, or shock, or try to freeze the bite. Here's some of the things you can do. Make sure the victim is safe and not in any danger of another snake bite. Remove all jewelry, tight bands, and clothing. This is in case they're going to start swelling. They can be given paracetamol. This sort of just helps them a little bit. You shouldn't give too much as it can sort of start to mask. And then the doctors sort of can't really see the symptoms and what to treat. Get the victim to the nearest medical facility as quick as possible. This is one of the most important things. If you can do any of your first aid while you're on the way, this is the best bet. The car's right there. Put the person in it. Start taking off their jewelry, putting on a pressure bandage while they're on the way to treatment. Making sure this person is conscious, there's someone watching him, that they don't vomit, end up choking on the environment, or someone there who can give some assistant breaths. Reassure them, keep them as calm as possible, immobilize the limb with a splint. And in case of a neurotoxic venom, you can put on a pressure pad to sort of try and slow the acts of venom. This is a pressure pad. You can see, so you're just putting a bandage on, and then you're pulling another sort of crepe bandage or a splinter bandage. You get some very fancy ones which have sort of rectangles on them. When you pull them into a square, that's the right sort of pressure to put on them. And this sort of slows effects. You do not want to do this to a cytotoxic snake like a puff adder or a spitting cobra, as it can turn into a huge problem when it starts swelling, and it'll turn into a tourniquet. Spitting cobra venom in the eyes. This is extremely painful. If you guys want to know what it feels like, after this, go get some Tabasco sauce, a bit of sand, and whack that into your eyes. It hurts like crazy. And the pain can be there for a few days or even up to a week, and your eyes can be very sensitive. You need to wash it out with any bland liquid as much as possible. So we sort of say if you have running water or something, for at least 15 minutes trying to flush it out. But you can use water, milk, beer. You have nothing around, you can ask your friend to pee in your eye, and at least it will help starting to remove any of that venom. You'll want to wear sunglasses to protect your eyes from the bright light. Even trying to look at your phone screen can make your eyes quite painful. Then you can go see a doctor to make sure there isn't any damage to your eye. But as long as you've washed it out with a good amount of water for a good sort of 15-20 minutes, and you haven't rubbed it, you'll be absolutely fine. Useful things to note for a snake bite. Did you see the snake? Can you describe it? Do you have any photos of it? Did the snake stand up? Did it spread a hood? Where were you when you were bitten? Were you in a tree? Were you in your bed? What were you doing when you getting bitten? Were you walking around? These all help us understand what snake it could be and what's the best treatment to do. Yeah. What time was the bite? Was there any traditional treatment done? Was anyone given any alcohol? Whereabouts on the limb was the bite? You can imagine bites up around your head or on your chest can be extremely dangerous, as the venom can get into your system a lot quicker. What are the symptoms? How are they feeling? Remember, shock is a huge thing here. So a lot of people can be creating symptoms, and this is all just a sign of shock. So make sure you're trying to keep someone really calm and not confusing shock symptoms for something else. Have a plan. This is the most important thing. You're going out to the bush. What is your plan? What should you do? Yeah. Have good communication, know where the airstrips are, know where your antivenom is, and what antivenoms can you get. In Kenya, currently, we use Panaf Premium. This is sort of the best available antivenom which we have around at the moment. Originally, we used to use SAVP from South Africa, but then it was banned and not allowed to be used in Kenya. SAVP is going through quite a lot of problems. We had, no one was really too sure what was going on there, but it seems like they've had some problems with their machinery and the processes there. So they currently don't have a huge stock or don't have any stock of antivenom there. I think the last I saw there was a few boomslang antivenoms which were coming out, but that was about it. So the best bet then is Panaf Premium. The difference with it has, I think, half the amount of proteins what the SAVP has. So you'll need to use a double amount of antivenom. If you were to use 1 vial of SAVP, you'll be using about 2 vials of the premium antivenom. We have used it here in Kenya. It is effective and it is working and having good results. Snakes play a critical role in our environment. They control the food chain. They control the pests. Without them, you'd have a huge problem with rodents, which are bringing all sorts of other problems in there. There are also other medicines like antivenom, people who are prone to heart attacks or blood clotting. There's a medicine which you have there, which they use snake venom in there. So there's still a lot of work going on with venoms. I know they're doing a lot of work trying to see if different types of toxins can break down cancer cells. I went to a big toxinology conference a couple of years ago, and there were some quite interesting results coming out. So we've still got a lot to learn from them. And I think there's a lot of good which can come out from their venom. Different cultures also worship snakes. We have some of the Maasai here and the Samburu. Within that sort of tribe, there's different clans, and some of them have a lot of respect towards snakes, will worship them, give them blessings, milks, and stuff like that as they're coming past. But it's nice for someone who usually seeing people killing snakes. It's really nice to see these cultures who worship and look after snakes. So what do you do if you see a snake in the wild? Make sure everyone in the group knows you've seen a snake. Show respect and back away. Take 5 big steps backwards, and that's puts you out of range for a spitting cobra. Allow the snake to continue on its way. They're meant to be in the bush, and it can slither off. You can take another path and carry on. If one is in your house or your compound, try and stay calm, stay away from the snake. Lock all your pets away and make sure everyone knows that there is a snake in the area. If you can get a photo, so you can send it to your local snake expert so they can identify it for you, can let you know if it's venomous or harmless. You can choose to keep it or leave it there or get it removed, and then someone can come and catch it. If it's inside, make sure the room that it is in, there's no way of it escaping. Keep the door locked, put a towel under it, push all the windows closed. If it's outside, try and observe it from a distance. Watch where it's going. If it goes into a hole, try to see that there's no other holes around for it to escape from, and then someone can come and try and safely catch it and remove it. Yeah, give them respect, show them the distance. Don't try to get too close to them. If you don't know what you're doing, do not try to pick up snakes. It goes wrong very quickly. There's a lot of YouTube. You can learn a lot of stuff from YouTube, but one thing you can't learn is how to catch a snake. If there's no experts close around, you can give someone a call. Like ourselves, there's plenty of people in South Africa. They can advise on different things to do, different methods on how you can move that snake out of the compound, or how you could safely put it into a bucket for someone to come and check. Do not touch dead snakes. This happens quite a lot. You get people sending photos of a dead snake. They're trying to look into the mouth to see its fangs, to see if it's venomous or not. It's not necessary to look into a snake's mouth. If it's dead and you still end up getting pricked by that fang, you can be envenomated. There are also people who have sort of chopped the head off of a rattlesnake or a viper, and then they've gone to pick up the head, and the head's turned around and bitten them and envenomated them. So don't mess around with dead snakes either. I'll go through some quick myths. A lot of people ask about snake repellents. There aren't any snake repellents that work. There's nothing you can plant or spray around your garden which will keep snakes away. Snakes are very similar to us. So if there's something which will harm a snake and keep it away, it'll also harm us and not be good for us. Something I was told when I was younger is if you get caught by a python and it starts constricting you, you need to grab some branches and you start breaking the branches, and the snake thinks that it's broken your bones and will leave you be. A lot of people think that snakes can only bite you once, and once they've bitten you, they lose all their energy and they can't bite you again. This is not true. With some of the snakes, you can get multiple bites. The snake will go off. If you chase after it, it can still carry on biting you and envenomating you. There's a lot of these, and you can go on with these for days, so we'll just skip on. A few great books here. This is an East African, sort of our Kenyan page. So a lot of these books are based for East Africa. Johan Merez, I don't know if he's on here yet, but he has some incredible books. He's released a few new ones for South Africa. So have a look at his stuff. You can see him down at the bottom there. They've got a great website, and they have a really good app which you can download. You can request for IDs. You can see snake profiles on there. And they also have a huge list of people who you can call to help remove snakes. I think that's the end of my slide, but I'm going to show you a quick video of a venom extraction, and then we can go into questions. So today we're milking black mambas. I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about why we're milking the snakes. So in Kenya, we lose about 1,000 people a year to snake bite, and about 400,000 people are permanently disabled every year in Kenya from snake bite. There's a huge problem throughout sub-Saharan Africa where there's a lack of good quality antivenoms. So part of the WHO strategy is to reduce snakebite by 50% by 2030. And to start with this, they need good clean venoms to be able to make better antivenoms which can be used here in Kenya. So that starts off with what we're doing. We're milking the snakes in the hope in the future to be able to sell the venom to people to make antivenom. The venom is also used in a lot of different research, from cancer researchers to also medicine which helps your blood clot. There's also toxins from snakes within those medicines. So yeah, that's a little bit about why we're milking. And you can see it going on behind us in our milking lab. You've seen us also doing a few different ways of milking. So one we call a forced milking, holding it behind the head. And the second one is a self-bite, so getting the snake to bite by itself. This will be able to help us understand how much venom the snakes give on average if it's bitten you once, twice, or 3 times. So that again will help in the treatment of snake bite. So we're going to milk a puff adder now, and we'll take you through the process of drying the venom from the start with the snake wet venom all the way to having the dried venom. So this now goes into a freezer where it'll freeze, and then from there we take it into the lyophilizer or the vacuum dryer. So these are all frozen venom, so you can see it in there completely frozen. A funny thing with venom is it defrosts very quickly. From here, the frozen vial will then take across to the vacuum dryer where it will dry the venom. So this is our vacuum dryer. There's venom in there at the moment. We have silica beads in the bottom, and then you'll turn on the vacuum. That will suck out all the moisture. Stays in here for about 3 days, and then we'll take it out, and then you have your crystallized venom. That's like this. Once it's in this state, it's completely stable. It doesn't rot or anything like that. Okay. Stay tuned for part 2 and we'll explain what happens to this venom. So in part 1, we did the milking process from getting the snake to bite onto the film, getting the wet venom, taking it to the freezer, and then drying it. Now we're going to talk about what we do with the dried venom. So this will be sold to an antivenom manufacturer, and what they do is they make a whole load of different venoms. So from puff adders, mambas, cobras, they make a cocktail. In some instances they'll actually analyze the venom and remove proteins or things which don't affect us, and then that gets injected into a horse. The horse creates the antibodies, and it's those antibodies which are used to create antivenom. And that whole process from injecting the horse to having an antivenom, about a year. Thank you very much, anyone. Are there any questions?
That was great, Kyle. Thank you so much. We did go a little bit over time, but I think it's okay because that was some really incredible practical knowledge that I think is really, really important for all of us to know, especially those of us living in rural communities and in bushland areas as well. We've had a really, really active discussion on the chat. Thank you very much to those of you that have been answering the questions as and when they come in. Thank you very much to Ali as well, who's also put her email there. So if there's any further questions following on from this, any more questions about collaboration as well, then feel free to drop her a message. And Jonathan Leeming as well has also been putting some really interesting resources in the chat as well. So thank you. First of all, are there any questions from people would like to ask live? If you'd like to put your hand up, otherwise we can go straight into the chat questions. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands up just yet, but There was a couple of questions further up the chat looking at research. So questions about how do you get involved in herpetology research in terms of human-wildlife conflict, and also what kind of research is being done in terms of the ecology of snakes and how they reduce rodent populations, etc.
So research in Kenya is, you need to get a permit for any sort of research you want to do. You need to get those permits through Kenya Wildlife Service and WRTI. Once you get those permits, then you can go into doing all the research you want to do. There is a cost on that. With the rodents, I don't know if there's a few people who have done some quite big research. I can't remember off the top of my head. But I remember a story which Roy and Dad did in parts of Kenya near the coast, near the Tana River. And he had two communities, one community on one side of the river and another community on the other side. And they had come to him saying that they have a huge problem with snakes. Can you remove them? What should we do? So he went and spoke to them and said, it's important to have these snakes. They control the rodent populations. But the venomous ones, these are dangerous. So we can call us and we can come and catch and remove some of these. But it's really good to keep some of the snakes. One side of the community agreed with us, and they would call us to come and remove the venomous snakes. They found it very interesting learning about all the harmless ones, and they were happy to leave them there. The other side of the community did not agree with what we were doing, and they decided to kill every snake that they saw. After a few years, they came to us and said, we have a big problem. Our crops aren't doing well. We have a huge problem with rodents. Please, can you bring us back some snakes to sort of try and repopulate the area? So it was really cool seeing that community who one side completely disagreed with us, and then at the end of it, they sort of came back to try and talk to us and get some more snakes back.
And did you give them some more snakes, or did you just tell them to stop killing them for a bit and they'd come back?
We sort of told them to stop killing them, and that we could relocate some of the harmless snakes into the sort of more bushy areas into that area. But once they started listening to us and we would start teaching them, showing them what are the harmless ones, which are the venomous ones, then it sort of slowly started coming back again.
Great, thank you. Okay, Simon, you've got your hand up.
Good evening, all.
Evening, Simon. How are you?
Yes, I'm Simon Namoni, educated snake conservationist and a proud member of Snake Community Action Now. The Ruscan, I've been actively involved in snake awareness training, focusing on snake identification, bite prevention, first aid, education, and in various communities. I also had the privilege of undergoing intensive hands-off and handling training at Watamu Snake Farm under the able guidance of Kyle Ray. Thank you. Which continued to play a crucial role in equipping members, as SCAN members, as well as other snake enthusiasts with the practical skills in snake conservation and handling. I had a number of questions. One of them was, how can able organization like Watamu Snake Farm improve access to antivenom in rural areas? And another one, what role can community leaders play in snake bite awareness campaign? And another one, are there any ongoing initiative to make snake bite treatment more affordable in the country, in Kenya? And how can the approach of training of trainers, TOT model, be implemented to increase education efforts, having in mind that the usual 1 month training, 2 days training, visiting schools, sometimes visiting one time and then going to another school, it's not that impactful as a training of trainers. So I was asking, is the model of training of trainers, can it be implemented to increase education efforts? And lastly, what are the successful examples of community-based snake bite prevention that Watamu Snake Farm can tell us that really brought a positive impact. Thank
I
you.
might need to ask you to remind me of some of your questions. Which I've already forgotten them. Remind me one, Simon, again. Your first
Yes,
one.
the first one was, how can an organization like yours now, the Watamu Snake Farm, improve access to antivenom in rural areas? That was the first one.
Yeah, so we are a non-profit organization. We rely a lot on donations, which means we're limited to where we can spend money. So in an excellent world, we would really like to make a few different venom banks. So having a bank in Nairobi, someone up in Savo, another person in Kitui who can hold these venoms and know that they're there to use. The problem there comes is funding to be able to buy those antivenoms and be able to stock these areas and keep them stocked. A vial of antivenom here goes for, as I said, about 8,000 Kenya shillings or $70. And you're wanting to have a minimum of maybe 10 vials in each of these locations. So that figure quickly builds up. And unfortunately, us at Watamu Snake Farm don't have a bottomless pit of money which we can put into it. So we're really trying to manage what we can do and cover a lot of different aspects. We focus a lot on Watamu. This is our town. And we try to implement a few other things in a few different areas. But coming together with organizations like yourselves and the different organizations, this could really help. A huge problem in conservation. You have a lot of different people working on the same thing, but they don't work together. We have recently come up with a partnership with SCAN. So we're trying to train more of your members on snake awareness, on handling, and then you guys can head off into the communities. We're also trying to bring a few other key players who have found who are really interested in snakes to be able to bring them in again and add into these other areas with missing people. So a bit like you're saying, the train the trainer. We've done this with a few different organizations, a little bit of like what we've done with yourself, where we've had you here for a long time at the farm. We've given you the skills. You've got the skills again from your organization, and now you can go out and spread this awareness into your communities. The thing with snakes is it's a dangerous thing to do. People can do the theoretical side of it, but I think people get quite big-headed and all of a sudden think that they're going to go and catch the first black mamba they see, and this is where big problems happen. We've had people who have come to do training with us, and the guy is absolutely terrified of the snakes. This is really dangerous for him, dangerous for the snakes, and it's dangerous for the handlers who are trying to train them. So we end up turning some of these people around when we see this guy's heart is not in it. He's not going to be able to control his fears. Another question?
Sorry, could I just jump in here, Simon? Thank you so much. That was a really wonderful question. I see that there are quite a few hands up, so I'm just wondering if we can move through those and then we'll come back to you at the end if there's time, if that's all right. Thank you though for that question. Okay, Stanis, you're next in line.
Yes, how's it? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you.
I just wanted to ask about the differences between particular people microdosing themselves with venom to develop immunity versus like hobbyists and snake handlers developing a hypersensitivity from like repeated exposure to snake bites through snake venom through multiple bites. Where do those different, because that's like quite drastic differences between exposure to venom.
Yeah, it is, and it's funny how I don't know the science behind it, but people can get an allergy to those venoms, and it doesn't only have to happen from bites. We've had people at the farm, for example, Roy and Taylor. He got a really bad allergy to the ashes spitting cobra venom, And this you can get from working with venom, the dried particles floating up in the air and you're inhaling them, to even cleaning out your cage, and there's venom left in that cage and you're inhaling those particles, and you can get really bad reactions to it. I haven't looked much into people self-immunizing. Maybe if there's someone else in the chat who knows better, then they could comment on that.
Okay, thanks. Cool.
Great, thank you for that question, Senis. Emlyn, it's good to see you.
For facilities that contain snakes for research and education purposes, what are the standards, and do they vary country to country? Maybe they do, for the appropriate containment of these species. You often see snakes contained in zoos in tiny sort of glass-walled enclosures, and lots of concern that the public understands about containment of charismatic megafauna in mammals and so on. But what standards apply to the appropriate containment of snakes in public facilities?
So there are different regulations depending where you are in the world. Some people say that the snake needs to be able to stretch out fully, to be able to move around its cage. So depending on your region, there's different rules. But it's something which we used to have at the snake farm. We used to have much smaller little boxes which we housed our snakes in. And it was a big complaint we always get. The public doesn't like seeing that. So we've moved away from them, putting into much bigger cages, which are much more visually appealing, have a bit more for the snake to do. But when keeping large amounts of snakes, like for venom collection, we house about 400 snakes. Our venom room can take up to 800 snakes. Having those all in a big cage where they can move around, you're going to need massive amounts of area, and the upkeep is huge. And you find actually keeping snakes in a place where they can feel well hidden, a small cage with a lot of leaf litter where they can hide, or even a rack system, which is very common, where there's no interference from people moving around, but it's nice and dark and a good place to hide. You actually find that those snakes do really well in those compared to snakes in big cages, which are beautiful plants and you have guests walking past every day. So it depends on different areas, but to be honest, a snake doesn't need a massive cage. It just needs a place to hide. I had a gaboon viper in a cage which was about 4 meters long by 1 meter wide. And for 3 months in the year, it stayed in a tiny little space, which is probably about 2 foot squared, and didn't move out of that. It was a nice bushy area. It felt very comfortable and didn't need to move. Snakes don't need to exercise. They don't need to run around. They want food, they want water, and they want a place to hide.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much for that question, Emlyn. Okay, I see that Sella's put her hand up, but I do have a message in the chat from Jonathan Leeming. I think he'd like to unmute and make a few comments.
There we go. So I've just come back from Eswatini. And one challenge there, as you know, is the cost of antivenom. It's very expensive, especially in rural areas. It's very difficult for the public to afford the amount which is required. But what Eswatini have done, and I think the big success there, is that they've made snake bites a reportable disease. So now they've got the stats, they can go to the World Health Organization and they can go to donors and they can say, listen, last year we had 400 snake bites that required antivenom. So on average, they get 400 snake bites that require antivenom every year. They know exactly how much antivenom they used last year and the previous year, so they can go to donors and they can actually give them a rand dollar amount, and they can also justify it. And that's made such a big difference in Eswatini. This summer they've had no deaths from snakebite, and it's the first time this has ever happened in Eswatini, which is absolutely amazing. I just want to make that comment. So it is possible, but it's everyone getting together, working towards a common goal. You need to include the government, and you need to include the local hospitals, but also the people on the ground. And I think that you've already mentioned it, that the traditional healers are also key in the role of snakebite. Absolutely important. And once you include them, and there's a whole kind of trend that, we used to exclude them, but once you include them in the whole process, it becomes adopted into the community. And the results are absolutely amazing. That's all I want to say. But great work you're doing up there. I've even been to Watamu in the good old Rojan days, and it's an awesome place. Keep it up.
Awesome. Thank you so much. They're doing such great work there, and it is a great model to work off. And it is making snakebite a notifiable disease or a notifiable problem is a huge benefit. You can get proper data. And I think that's one of the big problems where we're at. We don't have accurate data on it.
That's right. And everyone's the same. And also what Eswatini have done, they've got this amazing GIS where they can see exactly how many people get bitten by what during which times of the year, and then they can move the antivenom around, which has also been a big game changer for them.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for those comments, Jonathan. Really exciting to see that, differences can be made, especially in relation to research there, which is really important. Sela, please unmute and ask your question.
Thank you so much, Care, for this interesting talk. I should say I've really enjoyed it, and I can watch this 10 times more than that. Yeah, so I just wanted to make a comment. I also do some environmental education on weekends, and I wanted to share one of the reasons that I got from a student when they were asked, why do they think it's good to kill snakes? One of the students said, it's good to kill snakes because they are the animals that deceived Adam and Eve to eat the forbidden fruit. So yeah, but then I'm happy that she changed after the lesson. She changed and said it's not good to kill snakes. Yeah, I just wanted to share this because I thought, wow, some things they come from the Bible, and yeah, but it's good that people change after being taught. But my question is, if people want to volunteer with you, not to do research, but just to volunteer, what are the conditions?
You can send us an email. So if you have a look, I think Ali's put down our email, or it was in one of my first slides. And you can give us a call. We can chat to you, see the length of period that you want to come from, and then we can make a plan. A lot of what we're trying to do here is we have paid internships, so people coming from abroad who pay to be here and learn from us. And we try to support someone who couldn't afford that same program, but wants to also learn, and we try and support them in doing that. So get in touch with us, and we can come up with an arrangement and see how you can come up and volunteer. Simon, who asked a question, he came up and did 2 months or a month with us. And we get that quite often happening.
So much.
Thank you very much, Sela. Really interesting comment there on religion and how that plays a role in people's beliefs and their understanding of snakes as well. And Ali and Murat have both put email addresses and links to the website in the chat now. So if you want to go and check that out, more than welcome there. I think we have time for one more question. And it's an interesting question from Katleho Matiba from TUT, China University of Technology. And his question is, after milking the venom, do you release the snakes back into the wild? Wouldn't they be defenseless without their venom, or are these just captive snakes forever?
Good question. So we hold a captive population of snakes for venom research. The problem is if you're taking a snake from the wild and bring it into the facility, it's not used to any of the parasites or anything like that, which are naturally found in these different sort of human-controlled environments. So it might bring parasites into that area, or it might take something back out into the wild. So we prefer to go for a stance where we house our collection of snakes, and we milk them. We'll milk them every 3 weeks. Straight after milking that snake, it does not mean that that snake has no venom. Venom is like our saliva. You're constantly producing it and it won't run out. So once you've milked a snake, even if you try to squeeze out the venom through the venom glands, that snake could still bite 10 or maybe even more people and kill them. So they are not defenseless after being milked. So I hope that answers your question.
Awesome, thank you. And I've just seen a message in the chat from Walter, who runs a WhatsApp group called Walter's Wildlife Discussions, asking if you could potentially give a talk to them as well. So I can make sure that I put you guys in touch after this. I think we've got time for one more question. And I selfishly would like to ask a question of my own. I think something fun to end the talk on. What would be your most dangerous encounter or close call that you've had?
We've had some pretty exciting ones with mambas, catching mambas up trees, which it always gets your excitement going. You have a problem of falling out of the tree. I remember when I was younger, there was an area we used to go and catch green mambas, and we were there was a few of us at the bottom of the tree, and we had 2 other guys up in the top of the tree. They were just trying to catch a mamba, and the guy managed to get it into his hand, and he knocked a bee hive and started being attacked by the bees. So we just told him to throw the snake, and he threw it down. I think the snake got off, and then we all jumped out of the tree and ran off. So that was probably one of the more exciting ones. I had a great call coming back from a snake training in the Mara on the way to the coast, and someone had spotted a big python, and we arrived at the area, and like it was in a valley, and you could see people running, like hundreds of people from all over, just running down into the valley. And I asked the guys, I was like, do you not see snakes around here? He's like, no, we see snakes, but we've never seen someone trying to catch snakes. And we got there, and it was 2 pythons which had been mating, and they were in 2 separate holes, and we dug these snakes out, and we pulled out 2 big pythons. I think the biggest one was about 17 foot, and a smaller one was about 15 or so. But there was about 200, maybe even 400 people around us coming to see and witness this strange activity.
Wow, that's pretty incredible. I guess there's never a dull moment working with snakes.
No, it's always exciting.
Awesome. Well, that is us 9:30 Kenya time, and I think that's all the time that we have. But thank you so much, Carl. That was really amazing, very interesting, very informative. And if you do get a chance to visit the snake farm, please do if you're ever in Kenya. I was there just recently, having been revamped, and it's a really cool experience. So definitely worthwhile. And thank you so much as well to everyone for joining. We had a massive audience tonight, really cool. And have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great evening. Thank you for having us.